welcome you and thank you that you are here, but we ask that you please keep your microphones on mute. There are going to be media experts here. If you do not want your picture published, why? Okay, no, I'm not going to ask that. Then please just make sure that you do contact CIGFARO, contact the CEO, and let her know at least that you don't want your picture published. We want to thank our host city, Durban, or eThekwini Municipality, our Black Platinum sponsor, which is Moonsoft, our Platinum sponsor, Fleet Horizon. Our conference partners are KZN Bureau and Rosebank College, and we really appreciate what they have done for us. We've got a very short session before we go into the discussion this afternoon. So after your breakaways, I hope you learned a lot at the breakaways. And you're going to find this afternoon's session building on some of those breakaways. And you might say, oh, I should have gone to that one. Well, you will be able to see the presentations and maybe what the speakers talk about today. You'll also want to go and have a look at some of those presentations. But we've got a short session before the discussion on the cultural shift in the public sector finance. Two speakers, Glen Ntuli and Stefan van der Merwe, and really dealing with some meaty subjects. So we really appreciate Glen. Glen is the CEO of MNB Chartered Accountants, the actual accountants that are auditing CIGFARO financial statements. He's a highly accomplished chartered accountant and a registered auditor with over 20 years experience, and he's the co-founder and CEO of MNB Chartered Accountants. His expertise spans audit, tax and consulting services, and he oversees external and internal audits, forensic investigations and financial consulting for a range of sectors. So Glen's leadership has been instrumental in major projects such as private and public sector audits and forensic investigations, as well as financial advisory and consultation services and audit quality assessments. He's also the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee for the MICT CETA. So let's give a round of applause for Glen Ntuli. Thank you. I'm not calling him up to the podium quite yet. Sorry, Glen. I just want to introduce Stefan, and we're going to have Glen and then Stefan. And if we've got a couple of minutes left over, we're going to open it up for you to ask a question or two. But it'll probably be one question each or at most two questions. So Stefan van der Merwe, he is the gentleman who didn't stand up. But Stefan is a chartered accountant. He's got more than 25 years of experience, of which 20 years is in the public sector. Much like Glen, he's also been in the auditing profession. He joined the Auditor General in 2004 as an audit manager after working as the financial manager in an attorney firm. He's responsible for always passing the rigorous quality review process performed by URBA on the AGSA. He then joined Caseware. It was previously known as CQS, and he's now taken 5 different products that he took from inception, innovated, and moved it right through to becoming a product on the market to take the market share to about 50% of all government entities in South Africa. So really doing great work there in expanding the footprint of Caseware and also managing to help us in the processes. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Glen, who's going to talk to us about unauthorized, irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure management. And then Stefan will go straight into innovating and modernizing public finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, for allowing me to come and talk to your audience on the important discussion of UIFW. It's a pleasure for our firm to be part of this CIGFARO conference, and then we say happy 95 years birthday to CIGFARO. Let's give CIGFARO a round of applause. Yeah, this topic, it's really a topic on its own. I usually say that when financial statements are not prepared yet, or at the beginning of the municipality, there is nothing called UIFW. UIFW, it gets created along the process because of our actions, meaning when I say our actions, I mean municipal officials and the municipal council. And I think you will remember that we live in a country where our democracy is continually growing over time. A couple of years ago, let's say maybe 15 years, our democracy is 30 years old now. You will remember, those of you who are old like me, I mean, it's been said that, I mean, I've been working for 20 years. You'll remember back then, even our politicians, when there were campaigns and all that, the campaign was usually about free basic education, free water, and all those type of things. And as our democracy has matured now, you will hear the type of campaign which also talks to accountability. So I think as a country, we have grown from the point of talking about services and all that, and it's all about accountability. And everywhere on press, you will see where there's lack of accountability, where there's issues of irregular expenditure, where there's issues of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, it will even get media coverage. So that's a sign that this topic is really relevant in our lives, because when there is a financial loss, the resources are being wasted which should have went to the basic service delivery. AGSA over years has escalated the trend in the increase of UIFW. And AGSA also felt that there is nothing which was done. And hence now, as much as there is prescripts in terms of MFMA Act to state what should be done with UIFW, including investigations and all those type of things. But AGS noticed that accounting officers and then accounting authorities in terms of municipal council, they are not doing much. And now they've introduced the term of material irregularity. Because in the council, sometimes, because we are family there, or friends and all that, it's sometimes difficult to hold each other accountable. So now, the term of material irregularity has been introduced, and that required the amendment of the Public Audit Act to try and enforce accountability. I'll talk about the material irregularity at the later stage. I'll also like to remind ourselves that in terms of Municipal Services Act, council has a duty to perform functions in good faith, honesty, and transparency. And council, they delegate some of the responsibilities to the officials. So when a reference is made to council, it's not only made to councillors, even the officials, because council has delegated the responsibility to some of the officials and their extension of the council functions. And council must always act in the best interest of the community and in the credible and integrity manner, and not to compromise the municipalities. And the benefit of the community, it means that community must receive benefit for every single cent which they spend. And once there is a financial loss, council is not doing what it's supposed to do in terms of the Municipal Service Act, which is the key legislation in the establishment of the municipalities. So this is what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to bore you too much with what is UIFW, but I think for me, the bone of contention is the prevention of UIFW. Because if there is no UIFW, all the work which we are doing to manage the process of UIFW should be happening. And with this work which we are doing to the management of UIFW, which include investigations, endless MPEC, council's meeting to address the issue of UIFW, is really unnecessary if we did our work properly by preventing the UIFW. And this has a further consequence because some of the work which is done in the prevention of the UIFW, it involves consultants because sometimes it's difficult within the municipalities to be investigating each other to address these issues and all that. And now it might involve consultants, outside people to come and investigate and all that. And that has further consequence now that municipalities tend to spend money on consultants, and AGSA is going to come and complain and say, no, municipalities is spending lots of billions on consultants. And this could have been avoided if there was a prevention of the UIFW. So you can see on the slide, just to recap, unauthorized expenditure is overspending on the municipal budget or a vote or a use of funds allocated to a vote for a different function which is not for that vote. Irregular expenditure is an expenditure incurred which is in contravention, means it's non-compliance to the MFMA, Municipal Systems Act, Public Office Bearers Act, or the municipality's own internal SCM policy or bylaws. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure is those ones where it's incurred in vain, and it's usually where we pay for things and then goods don't get delivered, or we spend money on interest, or we spend money on penalties. So how do we prevent? Because I said the discussion should be around the prevention. We all know it's better we safeguard ourselves rather than to try and manage a situation occur. Even in terms of the auditing principles, we know that the best type of controls is preventative controls, not the corrective controls. So we can prevent unauthorized expenditure by creating good environment, control environment within the municipalities, good planning within the organization. The budgeting it's a point of departure for the unauthorized expenditure because it's when we have overspent. So we need to have the budgeting, good budgeting and financial management systems in place. And we also need to hold whoever is accountable. Employees, they have to be accountable and there should be consequence management, especially when there is the issue of financial losses. Yes, even if there's no financial losses, but I also believe that there should be some sort of consequence management, but maybe of a lighter note. We also need to have clear expense management policies which will assist municipality officials in the execution of their work on how to expense or how to process expenses to make sure that there is no overspending on the municipal budget or vote. And then with irregular expenditure, we need to have strong control processes within the supply chain management process. We cannot shy away from the fact that municipality, they spend a lot of money over and above salaries. Salaries, I think it will be number one, but number two, it will be on buying. because the municipalities are responsible for the infrastructure and they need to be buying or procuring services. And this goes through the supply chain management process. And that's the core of the municipality. And that's where the UIFWs come from, and strong controls in that it's more important than ever before, especially in the state where we are as a country, that where financial constraints and accountability need to happen at its best level. More assurance on SEM processes need to be undertaken. I've seen organizations in the public sector doing probity audits and all that, which sometimes can be done by internal audit based on the capacity and can also be done by external service providers to make sure that for complex procurement transactions, you need to get assurance from someone who's an expertise to assist you before you finalize the procurement, to say, okay, have you ticked all the boxes in order to avoid irregular expenditure. Staff training on a recurring SCM shortfall matters is very, 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 very important. And new developments around the SCM, when legislations are changing, when National Treasury issue new treasury regulations and all that. And as well as I've indicated for the unauthorized, the consequence management, it needs to be enforced all the time. Contract management is also key in the avoidance or prevention of irregular expenditure. Because without contract management, we will not know when we have a service provider as to say when their services are ending, when do we stop buying or procuring service from this service provider. And without strong contract management, we'll also know when the contract is expiring for us to be able to plan on the procurement, because we know that procurement in the public sector is not as easy as the procurement in the private sector, where someone can just wake up and say, I need something, deliver the goods to me. I don't know, but I feel that maybe it's over-regulated, but that's a discussion for another day. But I also understand that it's because it deals with the public purse and each and every cent matter. But strong contract management within our municipalities and our organizations is important to avoid the irregular expenditure. Okay. On the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, the way to prevent that, I think for me, is better cash flow management, because you'll see some of this expenditure which is incurred in pain is when we don't have cash flow. Is when we don't have good cash flow management, in a way that now we don't have money to pay ESCOM, we don't have money to pay water boards, we don't have money to pay some service providers, and now they start enforcing penalties and interest on our default to the contracts which we have with them. So cash flow management is very important, and consequence management. Okay. So I believe that CIGFARO delegates and CIGFARO members will never have to get to this position of treatment of UIFW, because we have said that we need to prevent. And colleagues, we need to try and live to the best standard possible, especially if we are associated with an organization which is 95 years old. We should not be dealing with UIFW. We should have made means all the time to make sure that we prevent UIFW. Yes, there are transactions in SCM where maybe it's an emergency and all those type of things, but there are provisions within the legislations on how to deal with those transactions, and we should be following that process. So when we have, okay, I think from this year going forward, we are not going to have new UIFW, but maybe let's talk about the ones in the past which we have or we come to identify now but it's relating to the past because we are not going to have the new ones, okay? So the accounting officer must refer the matter to the council. That's step number 1. The municipality need to keep the register of UIFW. It's very important. And I know sometimes it also sounds that maybe you will be reporting yourself when you have some of these irregular expenditures. Now you see it and pray that, okay, I pray that AJSA, when come to auditors, they must not pick this transaction, they must not pick this contract, maybe they will not see what I'm seeing and all those type of things. So it's a difficult situation. And if we avoid this difficult situation, we need to have avoided based on what I discussed 2 minutes ago. All right. I know it's not a nice feeling to come and say, I've got irregular. Now the figures are increasing. Now you're going to be held accountable. Right. So we need to keep the register for the UIFW, and this also helps with accounting because this UIFW, we need to account for them in the financial statements. And we know AG, when they audit, they will focus on completeness, and completeness is a major assertion which they need to focus on, and it might result in a qualification if we don't have a complete UIF register. Okay, then the council committee must perform the investigation into individual UIFW item. It means now, let's say you have a total of 100 million of irregular expenditure. You need to go and isolate them to say 5 million relates to this contract, relates to these transactions and stuff like that, right? And then you need to investigate each individual item and have a report for each individual item so that it can be treated as such, because consequence management might differ from one transaction to another. So the investigation of the UIFW, it must cover at least the following matters. Whether the expense resulting to irregular expenditure has resulted in value for money. Was there value for money which has been received by the municipality? Was there a financial loss which the municipality has incurred? And if there's a financial loss, there will be consequences, and we'll talk about that later. And then who is the official, who is responsible if there's any person? And the word official, it also includes councillors, if maybe there's a councillor who is responsible for that action. So it's not only limited to the officials. Then, if loss is suffered and value for money test is achieved, then MPEC must recommend to council for the write-off. That's after investigation. Okay, I just have 2 minutes to run up, but yeah. So council will write off if they are satisfied that there is no financial loss to the municipality, and council will request National Treasury to condone the UIFW. Council cannot condone, but they can only condone on the legislation which they control, of which in this case it will be the SCM policy or the bylaws. Okay, and then the council's actions is not based on what the National Treasury does, it's independent, right? Okay. And then there should be issues which are sent to the municipal disciplinary board for the disciplinary actions in terms of the municipality's disciplinary process when there has been a financial loss or there's not been value for money for the irregular expenditure or the UIFW as a whole. Okay. I've spoken about the completeness, that let's try to record everything, even though it's an uncomfortable situation, but this assists with regards to the audit process and the audit opinion. Okay, trying to Okay, and then there is a recovery of UIFW when there has been a financial loss. The accounting officer has a responsibility to write in 30 days after the determination of who is responsible for the UIFW to request them to pay back the money. That must happen within 30 days. Okay, and then in conclusion, as I indicated earlier, that in our growing democracy, even AGSA has seen the rise in UIFW, and then now they are taking measures. They went to the extent of getting the Public Audit Act to be amended so that they can be accommodated. And this means that some of these expenses, which are irregular expenditure, if they exceed 1 million now, they might meet the definition of material irregularity if there is a financial loss. And then AGSA, if it's satisfied that the municipal council or the accounting officer is not taking appropriate actions, then the AGSA can hold that accounting officer or the council accountable for the recovery of the money, because now the municipal manager or council has failed to do what the MFMA say that they need to recover the money. Okay, that's it. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. We didn't have enough time. But if you want to engage us further on this question, you can visit our exhibition stand here at the CIGFARO conference. You can meet myself, you can meet other directors within our firm and managers who can discuss the matter with you if there's clarification which is required. Thank you.